Okay, students, so for today we're just going to cover chapters 3 and 4 for your first unit. So what I'm basically going to do is I already have the MindTap application up on my laptop, and all I'm going to do is just basically go through like lesson 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, etc. Of course, I'll let you guys know as soon as I switch sections, but I'm basically going to be talking to you guys, helping to guide you, help you understand the material a little bit more, so that way hopefully your assignments can be a little bit easier to answer, and hopefully just your overall understanding of the material will actually increase. Because I know that this is actually very, very rushed and things like that, and I really need you guys to actually really truly understand the information that is provided. So for chapter 3, 3.1 is called Background, Variable, Fixed, and Total Costs. So basically this section is talking about like when you run a business, it's important to know how much things cost before you produce them. This helps you curb your losses and continue to make profits. For example, let's say that you want to open up or own a hamburger joint. And everything that I'm actually writing on these sheets of paper, I will go ahead and take screenshots of them and also provide them in the material online. So, let's say you want to own a hamburger joint. Well, in order to make these hamburgers and this business successful, you're going to need the following. You're going to need a building, employees, hamburger patties, and lettuce, tomatoes, etc. For the ingredients. Now, the cost of these items can range from anywhere between $100,000 in rent to paying each employee around $36,000 per year. Even the ingredients to make one hamburger can be around $1 per hamburger. Therefore, wanting to make around 100 hamburgers this year with 5 employees will look like the following. So if rent is $100,000 for the building, it's going to cost you a total of $180,000 for your employees, for your 5 workers, and then $100 total to make your hamburgers. Because remember, in this scenario, we're only going to make 100 hamburgers, and so it costs $1 for the ingredients per hamburger. So that'd be a total of $100 for the hamburger ingredients. So your total costs are $280,000 for this year. Okay? So this would be maybe for year 2015. So let's say for year 2016 you want to up the ante. Next year we want to make around 500 hamburgers as opposed to the 100 here. And you're going to actually hire 4 more people. So instead of the 5 employees, you're going to have a total of 9 now. So that means that you're going to still have your $100,000 in rent, because that doesn't change no matter how many more hamburgers you make. You're going to have to pay out $324,000 in your employee's salary, because now you have 9 workers as opposed to the 5. And now it's going to cost you $500 to make these hamburgers. Because remember, it's $1 per hamburger, and now we're going to be making 500. So now your total costs are around $424,500. Notice how the total cost amount changed or fluctuated from year 1 to year 2. So it went from $280,000 to $424,500. The causes of this change were because of the variable costs. And please excuse my handwriting. Variable costs are the costs that change as output levels change, okay? The costs that did not alter the total cost were the fixed costs. Okay, the fixed costs were the rent, the $100,000. So it didn't matter if you're making 100 hamburgers or 500 hamburgers, your rent still stayed the same. Your employees went up, of course, because now you're using 9 workers, because of course you're making way more hamburgers, so you're going to need way more people in order to do so. Making way more hamburgers is also a variable cost, because when you make 100 hamburgers, you may only need maybe 4 heads of lettuce. If you're making 500 hamburgers, you're probably going to need around 10 heads of lettuce, around 20 tomatoes, around 500 buns, etc. Okay? Fixed costs, remember, as the book already tells you, are the costs that do not vary with the amount of output, meaning that no matter how many employees you hire and no matter how many hamburgers you make, the fixed costs will not be affected in any way and will therefore stay the same. So here's a graph showing how variable costs, total costs, and fixed costs all look graphically. Oh yeah, because you add VC plus FC to get TC, you can basically manipulate the equation in various ways in order to find the one that is missing. So say if there's a problem that says what are the fixed costs, or tell me what the variable costs are. If you are already given FC and TC, where TC is total costs, FC is fixed costs, and VC means variable costs, then all you have to do is just plug it in order to find the one that is missing. So in order to find fixed costs, we can just say TC minus VC equals FC. And you guys will easily be able to do that, I'm sure. So now we're going to look at it graphically. We have our costs on this line, or as the book already had it, production costs. I just usually use costs. And we have our output levels on the x-axis, okay? Fixed costs always stay the same. So that is why this line is completely horizontal and does not fluctuate whatsoever. Because unless you expand your business to build a totally brand new Walmart or a brand new Target or something like that, all of the costs incurred within your one Walmart, all those fixed costs will always remain the same. Okay? Now for the total costs, those go up as production goes up. Okay? Of course, the more you make, the more your total costs are going to fluctuate. The difference between the two, this area right in here, that is your variable costs. And that is calculated just by subtracting FC from TC. Of course, you get VC right there in the middle. Okay? Now we're in section 3.2. This section is called Background Accounting versus Economic Profit. And so basically all we're going to be talking about is just the differences between the two. So the main difference between accounting profit and economic profit is that economic profit actually factors in and considers opportunity costs, whereas accounting profit does not. Opportunity costs are the costs that are basically like the foregone opportunity, or the cost of the things that we're giving up in order to get something else. To go back to the difference between accounting profit and economic profit, I would also say that accounting profit basically factors in all the numbers that you actually see, all the numbers that are actually tangible. Accounting profit is looking at all of those numbers that you can visibly add and subtract away from each other. Economic profit, however, also takes into consideration opportunity costs, which are not usually tangible, which are usually numbers that you cannot see, but they're actually still there in the decision making that you're doing. So, once again, opportunity costs are the cost of the things that we are giving up in order to get something else. So they are considered implicit costs because they're not tangible. So for an example, let's say I'm a star athlete in high school. I'm so good that I'm able to either go to college and pursue my education, or I can go play for the WNBA. If I choose to go to college, then my foregone opportunity, or the cost of the thing that I'm giving up, is to go play for the WNBA. So I'm giving up all the fame, the stardom, all the immediate money that I could actually be acquiring in order to get my education. Okay? now we are going to go ahead and talk about the sunk cost fallacy. So this section is mostly about making decisions and why we make them or not. When we make decisions on whether or not to attend a concert or a movie, to actually incur those costs that come with doing those things, we should only consider the costs and the benefits that are relevant to this decision. That means basing your decision on an outfit or just something that just has nothing to do with the cost nor the benefits of the entire situation are basically irrelevant. If we engage in this behavior where we will base our decision on, okay, I'm going to go to the movies because my outfit is really cute today, we're basically giving into the whole sunk cost fallacy, meaning that we are basing our decision on things that are irrelevant to the question at hand. A monetary example will include the cost. So let me title this Sunk Cost Fallacy. So the cost of inputs is $100,000. The cost of rent is $50,000. And the cost of your employees is $200,000. And so you basically need to see which costs should, and your administrative costs. Will be, let's say, looks like I got these two mixed up. So this one is supposed to be $75,000. And this one's to be $200,000. Okay? So I apologize about that. So a lot of times we need to decide which costs should be considered in our output level decisions. So in order to do that, we first need to see which costs should not be considered within our output level decisions, because that will usually make everything easier. So the two costs that should not be factored in on whether or not we should increase output levels or not are rent and administrative costs. These costs, no matter how much output you put out, are not going to fluctuate. Okay, your administrative costs that you pay up there to the CEO, CFO, HR, things like that, those costs will never ever vary. Rent, however, rent as well will never ever vary. Cost of inputs like the price of the lettuce, the tomatoes, things like that, the cost of the number of employees that you hire, yes, those things will definitely fluctuate. So the two costs that do not need to be considered are the costs of rent at $50,000 and admin costs, which is $200,000. Okay? So when we are making our decision, we need to factor out at least $250,000 out of the equation, because that has nothing to do with the decision at hand. The depreciation example in the book captures how depreciation should not be considered as well when deciding on whether or not to outsource. However, depreciation can also be used, and it just kind of depends on the situation. So when looking at depreciation and considering the price that you should buy or sell your car for, then yes, you should definitely consider depreciation. But if you're looking at it to see if it's actually going to affect your output, then no, depreciation should not be factored in. Now we're going to go into part 3.5. It's called the hidden cost fallacy. In addition to making the mistake of considering your sunk costs, it's also the mistake of forgetting about the hidden costs, or the costs that are indeed important within this decision that you're making. So the hidden cost fallacy is the mistake of ignoring the relevant costs, the costs that do vary with input or whatever decision that you're trying to make. So if we go back to this scenario where we say, should I go to the movies or should I go to the concert? The relevant costs that you should be considering are the costs of the tickets, the cost of the gas to get there, etc. These are the hidden costs, but they're definitely relevant to the situation or the decision that we have to make. Next, for the last part of chapter 3, it's called 3.6, a final warning. This is just basically letting you know that as a business owner, you will face many times in which you should have to make decisions. Sometimes these decisions will be easy to make, and other times they may be a little bit more complicated. However, using the tools mentioned and by always considering your decision prior to the costs involved, the answer should be fairly easy to come by, thus making the decision easy to make.